Hey guys, Tom Barclay here again. Less than, I don't know, definitely less than 24 hours since the fantastic Alkmaar game. We're back here at Tottenham's training ground after Ange Postecoglou's press conference. I'll come on to that in a minute. I just wanted to speak a little bit first about Micky van der Ven, because we spoke to him briefly in the mix zone yesterday after the game, and some of the things that he said. Obviously great to have van der Ven back, starting with Mero for the first time together since that Chelsea game December the 8th where they both got injured. And he spoke a little bit about how difficult the season's been because of injury, and elaborated a little bit about how it's been and the sort of decisions that have been made that's sort of seen him take such a long time to come back to full fitness to be playing again. So you might remember, obviously, he played against Elfsborg, I believe, on January the 30th in Europa League. He played 45 minutes, and then we didn't see him again for ages after that. And we kept asking Ange every week, when's Micky coming back? What's going on? And to be honest, Micky's comments last night kind of confirmed a lot of what Ange had already said. He talks about how the club had actually sought outside advice, external advice on Van der Ven, working about his body, the mechanics of his body. He also said that last night Van der Ven said that the Elfsborg game, he did feel 100% fit afterwards, but he also felt like he had some problems. And so the manager and the medical staff took the decision to sort of to hold him back, basically, to make sure that he was completely fully fit. Van der Ven said he wanted to feel like he wanted to keep pushing at that point, but the decision of the manager and the medical staff was the reason why it took so long, which is basically what Ange said at the time. But always good to hear also from the horse's mouth, I suppose, and to get a feel for how difficult it has been for him this season with these injuries that we're watching on while the team have been struggling. Must have been very difficult, but obviously being back now, he played a pretty fundamental role in that win against Alkmaar. I thought he and Romero, as I said in the reaction video, if you haven't seen that, check it out, really set the tone for the aggression of the team. Van der Ven obviously played an hour in that game and was just brilliant with his running and his tackling and his all-round intensity that he brings to this Spurs side. And I suppose he's always going to say this, he's going to back the team to win the Europa League, but he still went out and said it. He said he definitely believes they can win, doesn't want to get too far ahead, but does think they can win and they can sort of still make a success of this season despite the problems in the Premier League and being out of the two cup competitions. And he has full trust in his manager and his teammates. So that was pretty much it from Micky. A few minutes with Micky last night, which you may have seen floating around this morning. On to Ange's comments. A few different things. Maybe just start with team news. Everyone who played last night came through fine. There was a bit of suggestion or concern about Lucas Bergvall when he came off, but he's fine. Apparently it was cramp. Reguilon, Werner and Bentancur, obviously back from suspension, all available again. And hinted that there'd be quite a lot of changes for this Fulham game, so I haven't really quite thought before doing this video what the starting lineup or what I would pick for my starting lineup, so apologies in advance when I'm sort of trying to work it out in real time. I feel like I haven't slept too much this game last night, so again, apologies for any kind of incoherence over this video. So everyone came through last night, but no one else really who's been injured is coming back. He was asked about Kulusevski, and this shows you how little I've slept, and bear in mind it's been England Day as well today, which I haven't been at the England press conference, but I have been writing about Big Dan Burn. Obviously Spurs not interested in that, but been quite busy today, so I haven't actually had a chance to properly watch this video that I took yesterday, which I was videoing during the game of right at the end when Bissouma was pushing Odegaard to the south stand to get the adulation from the crowd. I saw that bit, but the reason I mentioned it is someone pointed out that in it, I think Kulusevski still has a protective boot on, or at least that was the suggestion. Haven't even actually rewatched it to check if that was actually the case. But anyway, the question mark around Kulusevski, when's he coming back, was brought up with Ange, and he said, he was quite vague still, to be honest. He just said post-international break is when he expects him to move towards the team. Not quite sure what that means in terms of when he's ready to play again, but if he was in that protective boot still, you would think there's still a bit of a way to go on that front. Same with Kevin Danso. He said after the international break, he did elaborate a little bit further. He said both of those players, being the big professionals that they are, really pushing to get back involved. But with 2.5 weeks after this Fulham game this weekend, given the international break and the fact that they don't play until midweek after it, there's 2.5 weeks to the next game. So it gives them plenty of time, as well as with Richarlison as well, to get back involved. and that's the plan on that front. If you can hear anyone in the background, there's some sort of event going on at the training ground today, so that's probably what that is. But anyway, what else do we move on to? Obviously today, maybe the headline of this video, I suppose, is that Djed, Spence and James Maddison have been left out of Thomas Tuchel's first England squad. Dominic Solanke has made the cut in an eye-catching England squad, as I mentioned Dan Burn before, but Jordan Henderson, Marcus Rashford, some really interesting selections from Thomas Tuchel, but unfortunately for James Maddison and Djed Spence, neither of them in it. I mean, I really did sort of get the sense that it wasn't going to happen for Spence, because I'd heard that he hadn't been contacted, and in fact I'd heard that before he actually confirmed it to us after the Alkmaar away game, that he hadn't been, that no one from England had been in touch, as opposed to James Maddison telling us after the Ipswich game that Tuchel had been in touch, and that had been a sort of ploy, I suppose, that Tuchel had done with a lot of other, a big group of eligible England players. So the fact that Spence hadn't been contacted sort of suggested it wasn't going to happen for him. And Maddison, look, let's be honest, he's just got incredible competition he's coming up against. I mean, look at the likes of Gibbs-White, who's had a fantastic season. Not being in this squad shows you the strength and depth. Bellingham, Foden, Palmer and others, so it's no shame on Maddison. It feels like he needs to just have like the most unbelievable season for Spurs to get involved again. But the fact that he's on Tuchel's radar, at least Tuchel felt it was worth contacting him, suggests that he is on his radar and there is an opportunity there. As for Spence, that's probably not more surprising, because I thought it was going to happen, but maybe a little harsher perhaps, because he's had a really fantastic last 4 months. For Spurs, really emerged out of sort of nowhere, to be honest, where his career was going. I mean, he's been probably Spurs' best player over this sort of difficult winter, and the fact that England don't really have any left backs. I mean, he is a right back by trade, but he's been playing perhaps his best stuff at left back. I thought he was very good last night against Alkmaar in that left back position. Lewis Hall is the obvious candidate for Newcastle, and he's injured, so you thought he was a real opportunity. But I think I caught a bit of Tuchel explaining that when he was talking about Miles Lewis-Skelly of Arsenal, who has been selected. A big part of his selection was the fact that he's effectively left-footed. Spence obviously isn't that, so maybe that stood stood against him. But on to Ange's points about it, I mean, he's very reticent to talk about or criticise any kind of international team selections of managers regarding his players, because he knows exactly what it's like to be in their shoes, having managed Australia. But he did say that he felt that if Maddison, he sort of praised their seasons, particularly Spence said he's been superb, and Maddison has really stepped up to the plate of late, and he's doing well in what's been a difficult season, really showing his quality, and that was definitely on show against Alkmaar. He said that if they keep working hard and keep playing like they are, then they're sort of bound to be in the frame for Tuchel, so definitely giving his backing on that front. He was also asked about having just Romero and Van der Ven back together, how big a boost it has been. And just obviously it is huge, but some of the sort of standout quotes from him saying how Romero's passing is ridiculous and Van der Ven is such an outlet, which is a big part of why they bring so much to the team, which is also true. I focused more on their aggression last night, being a big sort of tone setter for the team. But yes, right, Romero's laser-like passing, which was really on point last night, as opposed to the Bournemouth game where it was all over the shop. Just shows you what a quality player he is on that front, and Van der Ven, that running, that ability, that power is so useful. He's actually asked a little bit about Romero's potential dig, I suppose, at the Spurs medical staff, or depends how you view it. Basically, he posted on social media the other day after his comeback. He praised basically the Argentine physios for helping him getting back, and some people read that as the fact that he hadn't mentioned Spurs, and he specifically mentioned the Argentina's medical staff as potentially a little sort of pop at the physios. Ange dealt with it sort of quite diplomatically, and he just said that Argentina, because such a key player for them, they've been offering their assistance throughout, and basically it's been a bit of a coordinated effort in getting Romero back, and that was pretty much the end of that conversation on that one, which could have been a bit of a thorny issue. Just finally, some of his other comments were about Lucas Bergvall. It's a player that I probably slightly overlooked in my analysis last night. I mean, there was a lot to focus on, and quite a few of you picked up on him having a fantastic performance. There were times when I'm at the game, and bear in mind I've got to write a match report, and some people don't quite realise how this works. Like, you've got to do a match report so that when the final whistle goes, it's sent. So whatever you read in the paper the next day, generally is what I've written before, if not on the final whistle, if not just before. I'm not saying it's the biggest skill in the world, but it comes with a sort of speed of thought. It's not the easiest sometimes, and what that can mean is sometimes you end up focusing on the sort of big events of the game because you won't want to miss them, and more sort of a performance that is good but doesn't really have as much of an impact on individual sort of key moments of the game can be somewhat overlooked compared to when you're just watching on TV and you get the chance to sort of just relax and think about the game however where you want to. And so performances like Bergvall's last night probably went slightly under the radar for me. I mean, if anything, the moment that really sort of stuck out was his sort of careless pass, to be honest, that led to Alkmaar scoring. But I did notice he's playing well and having much more of a sort of a really key role in this team. I've just noticed that obviously in recent weeks and how powerful he looks, but I probably didn't quite grasp how impressive he was last night compared to some of you guys pointing that out. So fair play. I always enjoy the feedback because it makes me think about Spurs and the team differently, and sort of lends itself to better questions, better pieces. So I'm always interested to hear that feedback. But anyway, Bergvall was asked about, because I don't know if you saw this fantastic interview, and he's so good when he wants to speak and speak well, James Maddison, after the game. He was speaking to Marzi and Ben Haynes and Rob Daly, the Spurs sort of pitch side team, the in-house media, after the game. And he was asked about Bergvall, and he was really, really fair. He said that he felt like he misinterpreted what Bergvall was as a player when he first met him. He thought he was more of a technician kind of player, but he didn't realise he was as much of a lump as he described him. He's a real powerful player, and he sort of suggested that he could be fantastic at the number 6 role. And it is interesting. I think a lot of us didn't think of him as playing in that particular position, and maybe that still won't be his position long term, but it also really could be. And if he develops in that way, he could be the answer to all their sort of issues in that holding role, and maybe might even avoid them having to spend big money on a holding midfielder, particularly when you think Archie Gray's coming through there as well, even if he hasn't really played there. And Ange was basically asked about this comment about being a lump, I mean the power of Bergvall, and he said he's basically been at Deki Kulusevski's side throughout his time here, obviously both fellow Swedes. Kulusevski's such a professional, dedicated, always in the gym, obviously not like a powerhouse, like a lump powerhouse. He's obviously physically very impressive, but there has been that kind of physical development for Bergvall since he's been here. He still reiterated that he thinks his technical proficiency is his biggest asset, Bergvall, which does sort of suggest that I don't think he is just going to be this sort of powerhouse player, but the more you think about it, if that is his biggest skill and he adds the power or continues to add the power to his game, he could be one of those all-round brilliant players. I mean, not to go too strong here, but when you think of Rodri and what a brilliant technical player he is, it is his physique and his power that is also fantastically impressive, as well as his reading the game, which is ultimately the best part of his game. And maybe Bergvall's got a bit of that in him, to be fair. And just finally, he was just asked about like that development that he's had of late, and he said that he sort of really worked on the discipline side of things. He said he feels like Bergvall used to run too much in games, and that he saw that too much earlier this season. He's really worked with the coaches and sort of honing that in. And fair play to him. He's bringing out all these fantastic performances as a result, and he's really grown as a player. So finally, to wrap it up, obviously his game at the weekend, it's kind of forgettable now because seeing as where Spurs are in the season and the Premier League feels like it's kind of gone, even though Ange would argue differently. Fulham away, a fixture that last season Fulham absolutely blew Spurs away. I think it was Dragason's debut perhaps, or first start at least, and Rodrigo Muniz gave Spurs a real headache. It's going to be a tough game, it always is. Marcus Silva's got Fulham really playing well this season. They've got some excellent players like some Smith Rowe and various other talents, and Raul Jimenez seems to be playing as well as he ever has done. And obviously they're going well. They're 42 points compared to Spurs' 34. Alkmaar was a great result, but it shouldn't be sort of lost how difficult and poor this season has been in the league for Tottenham. And it's going to be a challenge. So on to the likely lineup. He did mention there's going to be a lot of changes, and this is where it gets a bit tricky, I suppose. And what does he do going forward? How does he use the Premier League games to serve as a bit of a vehicle for getting players ready for those crunch Europa League games against Frankfurt, and hopefully go forward from there. Obviously, there's also the international break going into this weekend, so there's a big break anyway. It is interesting how this is going to measure up. Vicario's in goal, that's an easy one. Presumably Udogie does come back in now, having not played this last week. It's really a tough one between Spence and Porro. Maybe Spence from away from home. Perhaps adds a bit more defensive solidity. I don't know. I don't think either of them are fantastic. From going backwards, it's more what they give going forwards. Different kind of profile players, but that's a tricky one. Van de Ven 60 minutes, so it's a quick turnaround. It depends how ready he feels, like whether he wants to sort of accelerate things now or give it a break. You'd think. It's just tough, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be Gray and Davis are in the mix. Where does he go with Van de Ven, Romero again? I'm honestly not sure on that one. Work that one out yourselves. In midfield, I mean, he did say changes, so let's think there are going to be players coming in. So maybe Davis and Gray at the back, maybe the two big men go back to the bench just to make sure they don't get overexerted after a big game on Thursday. Then in midfield, I wonder if Bissouma does get a chance again against the club that wants trying to sign him in Fulham. Fulham trying to buy him before Brighton got him. Maybe he gets a chance here to sort of resurrect his career. I don't know. Perhaps he comes in. I feel like Maddison should continue unless he's in some sort of red zone because he's playing so well at the moment. And again, Bergvall cramping up. Maybe he gets a rest, and Bentancur comes back in. So I said Bissouma. I think actually it'll be Bentancur, Maddison. So maybe Bissouma and Bentancur. Might try something out there. Maybe those three. But I feel like I'm sort of throwing darts at the wall really here. Do you know what's great? It's great that they've got so many options again after such a long time of being down to the old Harry Redknapp old adage of being down to the bare bones. They've got options now. So it's harder to call. I think Solanke still plays. I'd like to see Tal be given a go out wide, give him some confidence, hopefully. And I'd like to see Odeberg go again. I think he was really, really good. But obviously, wouldn't be surprised if Johnson comes back in now. They won't sort of rush it, so probably it's more likely to be him. But I guess the good news is they've got so many options that things are looking up on that front, which has been something we haven't said for quite a long time from Spurs' point of view. Anyway, guys, that wraps it up. I'll do a video post the game, which is going to on Sunday. I'll speak to you then. Cheers.